Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's teamwork build is all about grappling and fear. So if you like what you see, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell to be notified of future videos. Let's dive in. So for first level, of course we gotta pick our ancestry. For this build, we're going with the orc. And for our heritage, we're gonna go with the Beastkin heritage. And for our inherent animal, we want to pick up the bat or something else with echolocation. That will become very important later on. And for our class, we're going to end up picking the class that I think is the best at grappling, the Barbarian. Our instinct for our Barbarian is going to be the animal instinct, and we're going to end up picking the ape. This will give us an unarmed attack that deals 1d10 bludgeoning damage and has the grapple traits. We definitely want to get our item bonus to our grapple checks, so that's why we're taking this. Next up, for our background, we're going with Anti-Tech Activist. Not only does this fit our build thematically, but it also gives us automatic training in Intimidation. Which again, we're not just building around grappling, we're also building around fear. Group coercion will also help us out of combat whenever we need a group of people to do something for us. Our starting ability scores are going to be Strength 18, Dexterity 12, Constitution 14, Intelligence 10, Wisdom 10, and Charisma 14. And then of course we come to our feats. For our class feat for this level, we're going to pick up Sudden Charge. This will help us get right into combat so we can grapple as soon as possible. Then for our ancestry feat, we're going to pick up Orc Ferocity. This is just so we can stay up if we run into too many enemies coming after us. For second level, we are going to be using the free archetype like we normally do. So we'll get 2 class feats and a skill feat this level. As usual, I'm going to let you guys pick your skill feats since that's going to ultimately depend on your campaign. However, for our 2 class feats, we're going to start with No Escape. As a reaction, if a foe tries to move away from us, we can keep pace with it. This will really help with a feat we're going to take later. Plus, this will always keep us within 1 round of grappling our opponent again. We are also going to be picking up the Fighter Dedication. This will give us training in a skill of our choice since we're already trained in athletics and intimidation. But other than that, we really need this just so we can take fighter feats. At level 3, we get our first general feat, and that's going to be Fleet. A little extra speed will allow us to move farther with Sudden Charge. That'll help a lot on the first round of combat. At 4th level, we're going to be taking 2 fighter archetype feats. The first one is Opportunist. This will give us the attack of opportunity reaction. Yes, we are focusing on grappling. However, sometimes we may want to trip our opponent rather than grappling them. This is because a lot of enemies have high fortitude DCs. So we may want to target their reflex DC instead. And if we trip them, they're going to have to stand back up, which of course is going to provoke an attack of opportunity. Then we'll want to take our first fear-based ability, Intimidating Strike. For 2 actions, we can make a strike. If we hit, the target is frightened 1. If we critically hit, the target is frightened 2. We want to use this as much as we can. With this, we don't even have to roll Intimidation to make the opponent frightened. True, that's only 1 or 2 rounds, but that's going to change as we level up. At 5th, we get our ability score increases and our ancestry feat. For our ability score increases, we're going to want to increase our strength, our dexterity, our constitution, and our charisma. Our ancestry feat for this level is going to be Greater Animal Senses. And we're going to pick up Echolocation. This is mainly to help us with invisible and hidden creatures. It's a lot harder to fool Echolocation than it is to fool Scent. Okay, at 6th, of course, we get 2 more class feats. First, we're going to be taking Animal Skin. This will increase our unarmored defense proficiency to Experts. This will give us a +2 and eventually a +3 item bonus to our AC, without actually wearing any armor. We do have a dex cap of +3, but this effectively gives us a better version of scale mail, but without carrying the bulk. So we can carry 2 bulk more than we would normally be able to if we had armor on. Then we'll be taking our second dedication, the Champion dedication. Unfortunately, this feat is really just a prerequisite. It really doesn't help us with that build that much. But we do need to be one of the evil champions for the 2 feats we are going to take for this archetype. We aren't going to be getting the champion reaction, so it doesn't matter which one we pick here. Okay, now it's time for something new I'm trying on this channel. It is time for the first ever teamwork reports. This is basically where I go over the strategy for this build at this level, as well as some of the important numbers and some magic items that may help you with this build at this level. Unfortunately, at this level, we really don't have a lot of our cool fear and athletic stuff. Not yet, anyway. So the main strategy here is just to use Intimidating Strike whenever we can, and then target whichever one is lower between Fortitude and Reflex otherwise. If they've got a low Fortitude save, grapple them. If they've got a low Reflex save, trip them. Your athletics checks at this level should be plus 15. You really don't need Intimidation right now, but you will need it later. So, your Intimidation should be around plus 13 here. You could pick up a Demon Mask for an item bonus to that. That'll give you a plus 1 to Intimidation checks and a once per day Fear as an innate spell. For our general feat at 7th level, we'll just pick up Toughness for hit points equal to our level. Pretty basic. At 8th level, we'll take the Thrash feat. We need something to do besides just intimidate them while we have them grappled. And while we could just attack them, or grapple another enemy, we might take penalties on those actions. So this is a way of getting some good damage without taking those penalties. Essentially, for one action, we can deal damage equal to our strength modifier plus our weapon specialization damage plus our rage damage. This is an excellent thing to do on that third action, since we can do damage without taking that minus 10 to hit, or minus 8 if we're using our claws. Then on the free archetype side, we'll pick up Aura of Despair. With this, enemies that are within 15 feet of us take a minus 1 penalty on saves against fear. Also, and this is the really important one for this build, enemies that end their turn within 15 feet of you cannot lower their frightened condition below 1. We'll talk about why that's important later. For our ancestry feat at 9th level, we'll pick up Greater Animal Senses Echolocation again. This will increase our echolocation to a precise sense. That means if we decide to use it, enemies that are invisible or hiding will never be a problem for us, or our party. At 10th we get our ability score increases plus 2 class feats. At this level we should increase our strength, con, wisdom, and charisma. For our feats, on our Barbarian side of things, we're going to pick up Terrifying Howl. This is the feat that we need Intimidation for. We need Intimidating Glare to take this, but for one action we can make multiple Intimidation checks to demoralize each creature within 30 feet. Regardless of the results of your checks, each target is immune to Terrifying Howl for 1 minute. So basically the rest of the combat. Then of course we need another champion feat to take our wrestler dedication, so we'll just take Divine Grace to help us with our saves. As a reaction we can gain a plus 2 bonus on a save against a spell. At 11th level we get our third general feat and we'll pick up Die Hard. This means we die at dying 5 instead of dying 4. Also, this decreases the DC of our recovery checks by 1, making them 9 plus our dying value instead of 10 plus our dying value. Okay, time for teamwork report number 2. At this level, our strategy is pretty much the same, except now we have cool fear stuff. Now we'll actually want to use intimidation sometimes, so we can frighten all enemies in a 30-foot radius. Also, now that we have Aura of Despair, it's going to be a lot harder for enemies to get rid of that frightened condition. Because if we've got them grappled, in order to get rid of the frightened condition, they're going to have to do a few things. Number 1, get out of the grapple. Number 2, stride. However, if they attempt to stride, then we can just no escape after them. Then they must either stay in the aura and do something at least a -1, or waste their last action striding away from our aura. Either way, very good for us. Keep in mind, we forced them into this situation by just intimidating them and then grappling or tripping them. And we can do whatever we want on our third action. At this level, our athletics should be 24. At this level, we can pick up some armbands of athleticism too. This will effectively make our trip attempts just as likely to succeed as our grapple attempts. For intimidation, we'll want to pick up a Mask of the Banshee. This will make our intimidation checks a 23 at this level. We can also deal 60-10 negative damage to all living creatures in a 20-foot emanation. This will be really good for those situations when our allies are doing ranged attacks. At this point, we've been helping out our allies by debuffing them, whether that's by making them flat-footed or by frightening them. However, now we need to start thinking about our allies' damage. To that end, we need Share Rage. This will give one ally within 30 feet the basic benefits of our rage. Yeah, they won't get our extra rage damage or our raging resistance, but a little bit of extra damage always helps. Then of course this is a wrestler build, so we need to take the wrestler dedication at this level as well. We're probably already an expert in athletics, and we probably already have Titan Wrestler. The dedication will, however, give us a +2 bonus on fortitude DCs against grapple attempts and the Swallow Whole ability. We're going to be right up in there in the thick of things, so we need to be able to stay up. To that end, we'll be taking Incredible Ferocity. This will allow us to use Orc Ferocity once per hour instead of once per day. We have a lot of hit points and decent AC. However, at some point we are going to run into an enemy that's too much for us without this feat. Therefore, we need a way to stay up so we can continue debuffing our enemies. This will allow us to do that more often. A lot of enemies have really high fortitude DCs. We want to be able to grapple them too. So, we're also going to need Furious Grab. This will allow us to auto-grab our enemies after we hit them with a grapple weapon, like for instance our fist unarmed attack. We're also going to need Dazing Blow. With this feat, once we have an enemy grabbed, we can attempt to stun them. This will make them even less likely to get out of our fear aura. After all, they lose 1 action on a successful saving throw, 2 actions on a failure, and 3 actions on a critical failure. Unfortunately, this does have the incapacitation trait, so it's not going to work as well on enemies our level. However, if we use this right, then the enemy is going to take at least a -1 and maybe even a -2 to their DC for this. We definitely want this because it could effectively take an enemy out of the fight completely for 1 round. Our ability score increases at level 15 and 20 are going to be the same as they were at level 5. Strength, Con, Charisma, and Wisdom. As for our general feat at level 15, we're going to go with Incredible Initiative. We want to go first and get right up in there and deal with the most threatening enemy, and hopefully make him deal with us instead of our allies. Up to this point, we've only been able to really deal with 1 or 2 enemies at a time. With Collateral Thrash, we can damage a grabbed foe and a foe adjacent to him at the same time without even making an attack roll. Both foes do get a saving throw against our class DC. However, damaging 2 foes at the same time while not taking a multiple attack penalty, this feat is one of the reasons why Barbarians are so good at grappling. Then Aerial Pile Driver is another way that we can keep a foe within our fear aura. With this, we can make a melee unarmed strike against a creature that we have grabbed or restrained. We deal an additional 1d6 damage per weapon damage dice on our Hand Wraps of Mighty Blows. If we succeed on the strike, then the foe lands prone and we still have it grappled. Failure means that the target is no longer grabbed. Quickly failing on this strike means that we fall prone and we lose our grip on the target. It does require 2 actions to do this. However, if we can pull this and Dazing Blow off, it's going to take them multiple rounds to get out of our fear aura. At 17th, we get our last ancestry feat. We're going to pick up Animal Swiftness. Since our inherent animal is a bat, this will give us a 30-foot fly speed. This, of course, will allow us to grapple and bring to the ground flying enemies. Up to this point, we've just had to use ranged attacks and not rage against flying enemies. Now this build can finally deal with them. Time for teamwork report number 3. At this high level, we pretty much have everything we need to do what this build does best. Keep enemies feared. The rest of the feats in this build are mainly meant for situations where we can't really fear our opponents, either because they have a really high will DC, or simply because they're immune to fear. At this point, we're going to want to pick up a Belt of Giant Strength. That will increase our strength to 23 and give us a +3 bonus on our athletics checks. So with our item bonus and everything, our athletics check at this level should be 33. For Intimidation, we'll definitely want to pick up a Dread Blindfold. Yes, we already have Dark Vision. However, this will also give us a +3 bonus on our Intimidation checks. Also, the first time a creature sees you during the day, it must succeed on a DC 37 will save or be frightened 1. Your allies become immune to it after 1 week. We can also cast Phantasmal Killer once per minute with a DC of 37 whenever we hit a creature with a strike. That creature is then temporarily immune for 24 hours. The item has a DC of 37 for its effects. However, this item will also give us a +32 to Intimidation checks. At this point, we're just better at what this build is supposed to do than we were before. With Spinebreaker, we can attempt to grapple a creature we already have grabbed or restrained. If we succeed, the target becomes Clumsy 1 until the end of their next turn. If you critically succeed, then the target is Clumsy 2 until the end of its next turn, and Clumsy 1 for 1 minute. This is so we can lower the AC of enemies with high will DCs, which at this level you're going to run into a lot of. We'll also take Submission Hold at this level. This is pretty much the exact same feat as Spinebreaker, except for Enfeebled instead of Clumsy. We'll want to use this against enemies that have high will saves and high strength. Again, especially at this level, we're not going to be able to fear every enemy, so this is just another debuff we can use. As a Barbarian, our lowest save is going to be Reflex. So, for our last general feat, we're going to be taking Canny Acumen for our Reflex saves. This will make us a master in our Reflex saves. That'll make us on par with the rest of our saving throws. And for our last 2 feats, we'll start with Contagious Rage. We can now use Share Rage more than once per rage. Allies also gain more benefits from our rage as long as they're willing to accept our anathema. And then we have Combat Reflexes. This will allow us to use more than one reaction a turn, but we have to use Attack of Opportunity for one of them. In other words, now we can finally Attack of Opportunity and a No Escape on the same turn. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. But if you'd rather play a tanky Magus, you can check out this video here. So until next time, remember, teamwork is vital.